We're going to transition. This is where we're going to right now. The transition phase, I call it. Going from block to flat work. So right here, it's going to be about a 30 by 20 area. We got to remove all that concrete because we want it all to be terracotta with the same stamp all the way through. Otherwise, it's going to look kind of strange. You know what I mean? Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. We're in Bullhead, Arizona, and this is a multi-video project. We've already completed the first upload of this project, and that was the entire block wall perimeter, as well as the front block wall for the entry to this. Here's some of the sidewalk that we're going to be removing. We're using that cordless Milwaukee 14-inch. No water right now because we're doing a shortcut. It does have a water hookup, but since it's such a shortcut, we just didn't hook it up. This initial cut that we're doing here is where the terracotta stamped concrete's going to go in, right from the garage all the way out about 28 feet by 25 feet. Could have left the walkway in, I suppose, and then terracotta from there on out. It would have been really an eyesore. So we're going to go terracotta, same pattern, all the way out. And then the block wall enclosure for a front courtyard with wrought iron railing and wrought iron gates. Here's the Vermeer CTX 100 with a breaker attachment. This concrete's coming out real easy. No wire mesh, no reinforcement whatsoever. Really nice to remove. And it grinds up really well for future base, and no wire or metal to extract because I want to get some slope. I have the garage floor elevation and then I have the house elevation. They're both different levels. The house level, at least the block foundation that it's setting on, is probably 4 inches higher than the garage floor, and that's only about 10 feet across there. So I have to figure out how I'm going to get this thing to drain properly and not make a big ramp going into that garage door. So it's going to be a little tricky, but basically I was considering doing a little valley because I have to get the water from the passenger door around the side of the house, side of the garage, I should say, and drain out without it going into the garage door. Because you have a lot of drainage off the roof, of course, because there is no gutters. Although the rain is minimal, 5 inches a year here in Bullhead, Arizona, that's the average. But when it comes down, 5 inches at a time. The way we set these forms up, I don't know if you noticed it, but we triangulated. We measured cross corner to get this square. Initially, we started to square off the house, but I come to realize after a couple string lines that the house isn't square with the garage, which is unusual because this is a brand new build. You'd think they would have set them kind of straight with one another, but they weren't. So in this particular case, because I had planters along the house, I decided that the planter bed would be askew, from one end to the other rather than askew along the side of the garage. So we ended up coming square off the garage rather than the house. And instead of a 4-foot planter bed, we got 4 foot at one side and about 4'6" on the other end. Not as visually noticeable as a pattern, askewed 6 inches, So there's some things you've got to always look at especially when you're using a square pattern. If it was a random stone or a texture skin, it wouldn't have mattered. Or if we had laid it on a 45-degree angle, it may have not mattered as much. It still matters a little bit, but basically, you're just better off setting your form square and making a perfectly square pad. We're using a welded wire mesh. We've installed that. This particular concrete is a 3,000 PSI pea gravel, and we've got a half a pound per yard of fiber mesh reinforcement as well. We had this shipped in all the way from Golden Valley. It's about a 45-minute drive. And we're working in 90-degree weather. Although we're early morning, we're only at about 70 degrees, so we're looking pretty good. The overnight lows are good, so the material's fresh. For that transport, it's pretty decent. Could use some mister on the barrels or some cold water, possibly to, keep it fresher longer. And that's something to think about in the future in shipping that distance is misters on the barrel, batch with some ice or cold water, and then you can make those runs. So today I've got guys that I've never worked with. I have my brother Doug, of course, worked with him years, about 40, 45 years. And then I've got a new finisher, Luis here. You never know what you're going to get when you get a new guy that you've never worked with. It's like putting an all-pro team, football team. They're all great players on an all-pro, but then you put them on one team. Any team that's worked together will beat that team. But then you get a team like this that they're all pros. Yeah, they've never worked together, so it makes a huge difference. That's how I relate it. All pros against a regular team. I've did a couple more jobs with Luis, and now I've kind of got a good feel for what he's going to be the best at and how I can use him to his full potential. So we got this all bow floated out. We got lucky. We made it with 10 yards. So you can see the cross slope from the house to the garage door. We just went a straight slope instead of doing a valley away from it. We're just going to work that out in the next pour between the buildings. We're using a Terracotta from Proline color hardener, and it's about a 5,000 PSI surface color hardener. Nice thing about it, you get your color the very first day, basically, by doing this system. Plus, you're going to have a harder surface that's not going to fade, chip. It's more resistant to pretty much everything. When you're throwing that color out there, if you ever fed the chickens, it's that type of throw you want to do. Put it in your hand. As you throw out, you spread your fingers, get a nice broadcast. You don't want to pile it up. So I always start with the furthest point away, and then you get the residual short distance that's going to get you covered there. I've seen some guys, I catch them really quick. When they start throwing at the easiest to reach places first, they never did it before. Simple stuff like that you can recognize. If they throw furthest away first, they probably did it before. Now here's your bowl float. Bowl floating the first throw of the color hardener on. We used a 4-foot magnesium bowl float on that. Luis is going around the edges. He ran his walking edger, 12-inch, half-inch radius. And along the edges, I just colored it up a little bit more after that edger run. Have a little visqueen along the garage. Catch that residual. Now that block wall you see there, you can catch that in the first video. We just uploaded that one. And that one, it was the first video of this complete project. So now we're running the Fresno. We did, now our second color's going on. After the first bowl float, you could kind of see where you had some gray spots left over. So we tossed another package of color on there. So now I'm running the funny flow to try to rub in those hard to reach places. Right along the edge, along the side of the garage. The faster you get it rubbed in there while you still have that bleed water, the better off you're going to be. This all has to happen pretty quickly because when you're throwing dry color hardener on top, you're absorbing a lot of the bleed water and everything's going to happen quicker. But the nice part about it is now that surface is a 5,000 PSI, it's probably 1/4 to 3/8 inch thick of just sand and color on the top, sand, cement, and color right on the surface. So it's really nice to trowel, beautiful to trowel. It's nice cream on top that you can really rub out nice and tight. Here's your joint layout, and we could have done multiple joints all by hand, but we chose to just do one each way, and then off the corner of that entry to the house, just to get us through the night. And then I'm going to add about 3 more saw cuts the very next day. And I'm going to be using an early entry saw, a cordless Milwaukee on that. And it's a real nice tool. And that's going to all happen in this video. There's your walking edger going down 1/2 inch. To the left of that, simultaneously, some joints are going in. That's a 2.5 inch cutter joiner. And there's your joiner. That's your first cutter. It's about 4 feet long. Goes about 2.5 deep. Every now and then you're going to bounce off some wire, but it's got some notches in the front of it, so it'll kind of take you over the wire. Now we're following up that joint with a 1/2 inch radius, 3/4 deep walking joiner. And that will be our final joint. Although we have to hit this all by hand and hand joiners that match the walker. But we don't have to do a really magnificent finish. It's not going to be a hard trowel before we get ready to start stamping. It's got to be wet enough to get on there, but without sinking, and at the same time allow us enough time to get from one end to the other and still make a pattern or an impression in the concrete. So time is of the essence. Timing. If you got good timing, you can do concrete. If your timing is not that good, you don't want to do concrete. Now here's Lewis going down on the sliders along that garage door, or the side of the garage. Doug just ran the funny trowel there. Here I am, head cam shot off the 20x4. We're not going to really have to do a whole lot to this. We didn't even have to go out on knee boards on most of it. It was just all funny trowel and walking joiners. So we're going to stamp over that joint. We're not too worried about it closing up when we go over it, because as we go over it, we can open it up with a roller joiner. If these mats close it up a little bit, it's no biggie. We were going to use two sets of mats. One was Roman slate, one was Italian slate, very similar texture. We were going to put those together, so we had a little bit of Roman, a little Italian going simultaneously on this. But what we found out is they weren't matching. The sizes of them, they interlocked and everything like that, but the sizes were just a little bit off. Maybe an 1/8 inch, but an 1/8 inch over, 10 feet or whatever, it really adds up quickly. So we threw the yellow mats away, which was the Italian slate, because they didn't really match up with the Roman. So, you have to just, it's trial and error a lot of times. So you have to figure it out real quick. Otherwise, you'd be fighting it through this job the whole way, and it would never be right. So you got to make adjustments on the fly. In other words, if you don't, you're going to lose. So we don't have as many as mats as I would have liked. I would have liked to use that other set with this. I would have had more than enough mats, but we made this work, and it turned out beautiful all in all.
Okay, you want to pull this one or one of the one in the back? No.
Oh, the one in the back, yeah.
We set it here.
Yeah.
Locks it. Watch it, don't go too fast. You said yours first.
Yep, it's in. Let me hit it. So now we were just about at the end of the job, and you could see that the texture was going in about the same as it was right from the beginning. So we really kept up with this thing well. Oh, here we are with the Milwaukee early entry saw. I picked this little unit up at the World of Concrete when I was there previously. Beautiful tool, I have to tell you. This is my new early entry saw for all my saw cutting of concrete. This is the first time I used it. I was a little skeptical. I was so used to that Medusa saw, and it rolled straight, and I was concerned because a lot of these concrete saws, they just don't roll straight. So I was skeptical switching over to this unit, but I'll tell you what, it actually rolled better than the Medusa saw. It has bigger flat wheels. It gets over stamped and obstacles a little straighter, and it's battery powered, so I'm not having a cord dragging around all over the place. I just put the battery in and run it and do about 2,000 feet at 3/4 of an inch, so I can cut up a lot of concrete at one battery. Here is the very next day, getting some of that color hardener and dust and dirt. The dirt was blowing because this was a vacant lot, for a long time after the house went up. So all this dirt was sticking to the building. But I used a little bit of Dawn soap. Beautiful combination of joints, wet cut joints, saw cut joints. You really can't see any of them. You just see that beautiful pattern. Odell, where you going? Huh?
Well, while you're over there telling stories, I gotta get shit done.
Oh.
You're over there telling all your customers.
Here's the best
stories.
part when you're doing a good job. You don't even have to ask for money. They just hand it to you. Thanks. But you know what? That's pretty much how I do all my jobs are that way. I never even have to ask for payments. They just They rush to give me money. And that's the way I like it. Now it's seal day. This is actually about 3 weeks after the pour. You can see the block wall's been completed, but you can see that block wall being completed in the previous video. Our next video is going to be another side of the house, the driveway addition and portion of the side of the house. You'll be able to see that too on their next video. And that's just your basic standard concrete with some challenges that you need to address through the process. Here's your sealer, and I got this particular sealer at Concrete Accessories. I was able to dilute it 3-to-1. I used acetone to dilute it with. I use 3 parts of sealer, 1 part of acetone, and it comes out of that sprayer real nice. The sealer is complete. Let's see if it's dry yet. Should be just about dry. Let me take a look over here in this area. See if we can touch it yet. Oh yeah, it's just about there. A little tacky in a couple spots. Another 20-30 minutes. But that's basically how it's gonna always look. That wet sheen, glossy look. Because it has so much texture, it's still gonna be a non-slip. And out here in these weather conditions, we're looking at a reseal at about every 2 years. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you like these kind of videos or know somebody that does, share them with them so they have an opportunity to see what might work for them or what kind of designs they like to do at their house. Have a good one, and thanks for watching.